Hi, I'm Gian Lombeyda, and you're listening to the LACHSA Masterclass Podcast. Today we are joined by the incredible Mr. Mark Crash Mccreery, concept designer and FX supervisor. His credits include Edward Scissorhands, the full Jurassic Park Series, Inspector Gadget, Galaxy Quest, AI Artificial Intelligence, The Village, Enchanted Rango, and much, much more. Mr. McCreery's work has received much acclaim over the years, including multiple Academy Award nominations and recognition by The Hollywood Reporter, Daily Variety, and the Museum of Natural History, and more. So, without further ado, welcome, Mr. McCreery. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. The fact that there's a school like this just blows my mind. It makes me incredibly jealous that I didn't have this when I was
sure. Relatively new. I know our CA department just started like 8 years ago or something like that.
That's crazy.
So
that's so good, but it's so important.
For sure. I'm honored being here. So
fantastic, yeah.
Cool. So to get us started, when did you first want to be a filmmaker, and what drew you to film?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I'd always been drawn. Well, I'd always been into art, so I'd always drawn. But I wasn't that interested in like going to galleries or other artists' work. I was more into movies, and I think King Kong probably, when I saw that on TV when I was a kid, just blew my mind. Like that solidified it for me. Like dinosaurs and monsters, and great story, and the heroine, and I felt bad for him. I felt bad for the monster at the end of the movie, and that spoke to me in a way that nothing else ever had, because I had always felt like kind of the misfit and the outsider, and for me to feel bad for the one, thank you so much, for the character that everyone was trying to kill. Just I was like, wow, I relate to that guy.
For sure. Oh, for sure.
And the fact that the filmmakers made it sympathetic, that at the end of it you're actually kind of rooting for him and you feel bad for him, and that really spoke to me as far as like my childhood. I moved around a lot. My dad was in the service, so every year and a half, 2 years, I was having to make new friends, which at that age was really hard to do. So I tended to kind of keep to myself and watch my monster movies. I'd stay up late for a creature feature and see what was coming on.
Totally.
Yeah, so
very cool. Out of curiosity, do you remember what else maybe you wanted to be as a kid? Like, I know you were playing music a lot.
Yeah, that didn't come till later, and I was terrible. Like I just wanted to play guitar. I just wanted to play Pinball Wizard on a guitar. That was all I wanted to do, and I learned it. And then I got into the band thing, and that was really fun because drawing I could always do since I was a kid. I never strived to be better. I never strived to learn more or to learn how to do this or that. I could just kind of do it. And music to me was more challenging, and when there was a result, it was so much more satisfying. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I was never disciplined again. I'm
in the same boat. I've been a drummer for 13 years, and even all along that time, I still haven't gotten down to practicing every day or anything like they say.
Exactly, yeah. But you still love it. You've been doing it for 13 years,
yeah.
And it's like, that's what music was to me. I love doing it, even though I was awful. And eventually I had to kind of give it up and get serious and go into the art world. That's a big, something steady and yeah. So
for sure.
Yeah, but I did. Music came quite a bit later, but for me, I think monster movies and dinosaurs and
always spoke to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I got into surfing when I was pretty young.
Okay. And
tennis, I loved that. My brother and I became very close because we moved around a lot. We kind of latched onto each other, and so it was really about kind of nature and being outside.
For sure.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, particularly in the first few years of your career, you gain experience in multiple art positions from like special effects to makeup and such. So, especially in high-grossing films like Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, and Terminator. What were those experiences like, and how did you get there so darn quickly?
Timing and just luck, pure luck that I just happened to.
I'm sure there was skill there too.
Well, the skill got me into the door, but the luck was the timing of what was happening at Stan Winston's studio at the time. He had done Predator, Terminator, Aliens, and so he was starting to explode as far as getting the recognition. And right then is when Edward Scissorhands, Predator 2, Terminator 2, and then Jurassic. Within that couple of years, it was just everything started happening, and I just I did get in the door because of what I was able to do. But again, man, if I did it now, it's like I don't know what I'd be working on. So I was just very lucky at the timing of when I came into the industry, and
timing is everything for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And even at the time, you don't really know what you're working on until after it's come out, and it either does well or it does not do well. Again, and it wasn't luck because we were working with amazing directors, but even Jurassic Park, we didn't know, because it was kind of the bridge between physical effects and digital effects. Phil Tippett had done a bunch of stop motion tests of a raptor running, and then we saw this digital test from ILM of this T-Rex walking through a field, and we were like, oh my goodness, everything just changed. And we shot Jurassic, and then as it was being edited, Steven was working on Schindler's List, and so we weren't hearing anything about how the movie was coming out. We shot everything. There was still a digital component that we hadn't really seen, and we didn't know how it was going to come together until we went to the premiere. It wasn't the actual premiere, but they did a screening for the cast and crew, and we were walking in going, gosh, I hope this works, because we had no clue. And when it was over, we walked out going, wow, we just did something amazing.
Sure.
And you don't know.
Inspired so many. So.
Yeah, and you don't really know why you're doing it, because there's so many people involved and so many brilliant people, hopefully, that you get to work with, and so many factors that have to come together to make something work. And so
Totally. So along with skill and timing, would you say college also supported that? No. Well, would you recommend?
I almost spit my coffee across the table. No. Like,
No.
Our art center was a good experience, and I'm sure some people got way more out of it than I probably could have gotten more out of it had I applied myself. So it's not really fair to say that it was the college, because I graduated without a portfolio I could use, and only because it's not what I wanted to do. So, it was I was surprised that the college at the time, it's different now. They have a whole entertainment kind of division, which it should, and I like to think I'm part of getting that going, because after Jurassic Park came out, they had me come back and talk at Art Center, and it's so funny because I graduated with the low life guys, and then they're like, hey, can you come back and give a talk about what you did? And when I did, I came back and I said, look, right over the hill, this is in Pasadena, I said, right over that hill is Hollywood, and they need artists. I don't know why you're not taking advantage of that. And then really a year later, they had started their entertainment division. But no, I mean, the great thing about college is that you do meet some nice people. I'm not in touch with anybody that I went to college with, and that's just me. That's kind of the loner in me, from when I grew up.
I feel that too.
I had one class that I learned about light and shade, and that helped define my style and my ability. So there was one class that I really learned
would you
the
say
value.
It was worth it, though? Like, would you recommend?
No, I don't.
For us, though, like the next generation,
at the
you're
time,
talking about the new the new classes, would you recommend going to college or?
Gosh, that's tough, man. You're gonna get me in a lot of trouble. 'Cause
No.
college is great, I guess, because there's a certain amount of experience that you get with being around your peers and getting, on a high school level like this, invaluable. Like, because you're all just starting out, and you're just hungry and you're excited, and you're not thinking about a career. You're just thinking about having a blast, doing something interesting and creative. As soon as you get into college, you have this kind of looming, when I graduate, what am I going to do? Am I going to get a job? Am I going to get work? Am I better than that guy or that girl? Or is she better than me? And am I going to compete? Like, all of that stuff starts to kind of like percolate in your brain. I'm sure. Fortunately, I didn't care.
That's the right
I didn't know what I was going to do, and I thought, you know what? If I end up on a beach in Mexico surfing for the rest of my life, that's what I do. That's fine. And that's what I mean about luck and just stumbling. I've just been, I don't know. It's like, I think there's a superhero character. What's her name? Where she's just, good luck is like her thing. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Anyway, but that's my life. I literally, man, it's like I'm just so fortunate. There is a guardian angel watching over me that I can't explain. And yeah.
Okay. That'll be great, thank you.
Did I interrupt you?
No, you're okay.
Do you know who I'm talking about? No?
Someone listening will find it.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So cool. So you were talking about your relationships and in working and collaboration, and I know while college may not end up being the right area of networking, what is your opinion on networking and like how invaluable it is, and how do you go about it?
Man, again, it's funny because when I left Stan's, I got an agent, but I want to say that the majority, 95% of the work that came to me came through other people just knowing my work and then contacting me directly.
So it's good to get your work around then?
Well, and again, I had the fortune. I was fortunate in that when I worked at Stan's, like really high-profile directors would come through, and not so high-profile, the up-and-comers, and Stan was gracious enough to put my work on the walls, and so they would walk through and go, "Oh wow, who's this?" That's how Gore Verbinski kind of like contacted me after I left Stan's. It wasn't that I was sending out flyers. I did make that video, and so I just kind of sent it to everybody that I ever worked with. I don't know if they ever saw it, but based on their experience at Stan's is when they would contact me, and I've never had to network. And it's kind of a weird field that I'm in because it's not a jealousy, but it is kind of competitive. It's like, who's going to get to design this? And there are some great effects companies that I've worked with since Stan's as either a art director or whatever. And I love working with the artists, and I don't have any kind of, because it's collaborative. Like, if you can do it better than me, then do it, because I want to see that movie done as best it can be. Still won't work, but I've just been, again, super fortunate that the work kind of came, and so for the last 5 years I've been at Universal. I worked on The Mummy, the Tom Cruise one. Nice. Didn't do so well. They wanted to kind of re-examine how they were doing these monster movies, so they kept me on, and I've been there ever since, which has been amazing. So I still keep in touch with Gore Verbinski. We still talk about things to do, but I'm so happy where I'm at right now. If everything I've done has culminated up to this point for me to be at Universal, because they're the home of the monsters. You know what I mean? Like,
no, totally.
It doesn't get better than that. Like, that's just insane. So, again, man, it's like there are probably artists who could speak about the value of networking, especially socially, social platforms, things like that, digitally. I have a Facebook page. I'm never on it. I don't use
I'm in the same place.
Anything. Yeah, it freaks me out, for one. But I just kind of go along until it's not going to come along anymore, and then I'll figure out something else to do. I've just been really fortunate. That's all.
Well, that's good to know.
I wish I had better insight. I'm
no,
sorry.
No, for sure. No, that's actually really good to know, because I know there has been some people that are saying, "Oh, networking is everything. If you don't network now, then you'll be in trouble." So it's good to know that
could be true.
Uh-oh. Making me take back my comments now.
No. But there, like, there's always two sides to it. You know, and I thought. And that is that, it is, but you can't just rely on that. You've also got to kind of follow your own heart and follow your own destiny. You know, don't rely on that to be, well, I've done all this networking, how come I don't have any work? Well, maybe because you're a jerk, or maybe you haven't honed your skills anymore. You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons why that can work. I think that's just another tool. You know, I could say, well, it's important to get a portfolio together that represents who you are, more so than networking, because if you're going to network, you got to have something to show. So I think it's different for, you know, I'm not going to say that's not important, but I just never used it. Yeah,
for sure.
I think the most important thing is don't be a jerk. Like, no matter, because when you do network, you have to maintain a humbleness that people like working with nice people, because it's a collaborative industry, and you are going to be working with other people that might rub you the wrong way, and how you react to that and how you deal with those situations are going to depend on whether you come back or they ask you back or if they keep you part of the team. When I first started working on Pirates, there were 4 other artists on it with me. I never saw them. I would just see their work on the wall when I'd walk in. And one by one, they said, less work, until it was just me. And I asked Gore's assistant, and I go, what happened to these guys that were working? This guy took too long. This guy was a jerk. This guy cost too much money. He demanded too much stuff. He did. So there were all these things that, you know, it's not about just the work. And I go, but the work looks great. And she's like, it just wasn't worth it, though. So their attitudes kind of got in the way of because Gore's, when you deal with people who are really good and creative, they don't have time for that. You know what I mean? They want to be in a cool creative space. And my best advice is to just be as humble as you can, regardless of how good you get or how big you become. Like when I talked to Roger Deakins when we were working on Rango, and I was, you know, starstruck when I met him. And he was the most humble, cool dude. And it's like, you know, you just fantasize, I just want to work with him the rest of my life. I'll do anything, whatever you want me to do. I just want to work with people like that, you know? So
Very
be
cool.
one of those guys or
For
girls.
sure. Lifelong lesson, don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Totally. So what would you say makes a good collaborator then? And somebody who
can have a strong opinion but will listen to ideas. And it depends on who's in charge, really. I mean, if you're collaborating on an equal level, which is rare for me, it's usually there's the director and I'm working for the director. When we're collaborating, it's great to know that he's listening to me and taking even weird stuff that I come in with that he didn't expect. Some directors love that because they're like, oh, that's why I have you here, because why do I want to just do what's in my head? I want some ideas, fresh ideas. The worst kind of collaboration, I worked with a director, and I won't name his name, but he just said, I want something like Predator and Alien, but not Predator or Alien. And I was just like, what? Like, what can you give me any, like, what do you see? I see Predator and Alien, but not Predator. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'd go away, and for months I would come back with designs that just, he's like, it looks too much like Predator. That's what you asked for. And it was awful. It was just that wasn't a collaboration. It was like he didn't know what he was doing. So a good collaboration is when you have someone who does have a vision, even though they're willing to tweak that vision or accept other people's ideas.
Totally.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit, after doing projects like Jurassic Park, you then went back to doing makeup for projects like Interview with the Vampire before going back to The Relic, and Jurassic Park 2 for effects and character design. So did you ever think you had to stick with like one specific position per se, or would you recommend flexibility in that sense?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, especially again, back then, before digital really took off, Stan hired me really on a it was what's it called when you a risk. He risked hiring me. Even one of the guys who was eventually ended up being my best friend there, Shane Mahan. He goes, "What's this guy gonna do? Like he can't sculpt, he can't run foam, he can't do makeup. He didn't go to the Dick Smith School of Makeup, and he didn't do this, he didn't do that." And Stan just said, I like his designs, so he's just going to be the designer. And so after being there, and being around it so much, Stan and the guys were like, "Hey, why don't you try sculpting a little bit and do this and do that?" It was fun, but there were guys that could just blow me out of the water. It's like, why do I want to do that? It's thanks for letting me, do this toenail.
Totally.
I can say I sculpted that toenail. That's awesome. But my forte is in the design and the drawing. And sometimes it wasn't always the design. It was just the drawing itself. Because, directors would come in and just go, "Wow, that looks great. Yeah, let's keep moving forward." And so the presentation of what I was doing really helped kind of get work too. Like directors would walk in and go, "Wow, you have a vision for, all of this stuff. This is great." So I knew my strengths. But the guys were gracious enough to kind of teach me how to make a mold and how to, I did one, I think, one mold. I ran some foam. I ran a show, and it's tough. And it's like you realize those are disciplines, just like everything else. So I think if you can, there's something about being a jack of all trades and the king of none, so really have that one specific thing that you do really well that you can always go back to. But there's no harm in dabbling outside of that, especially if it relates to what it is that you're doing.
Speaking of dabbling, you went to writing school for a little while, and then you wrote on Earth versus the Spider.
I didn't go to writing school.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. No, that's all right. There's all kinds of weird information out there. That's why I don't go on, these
that's fair
things.
enough.
Yes. But so Lou Arkoff, whose father, I believe, had all these great titles, and there were these kind of B horror movies that were made, and he wanted to kind of revamp them. And he came to Stan, and it's like, at that time, Stan was kind of getting into production now. He wanted to go beyond just making effects. He wanted to get into making films and making television shows and doing all this stuff. And so we had the luxury of like, "Hey, how about this idea?" And so I kind of came in. Somebody came in with an idea for Earth versus the Spider, which was a movie that was done a while ago. That was one of the titles. And this up-and-coming director came in, and the idea was just dumb. It was just like, oh, God, I'm sorry, but that's just dumb, like typical. I go, "What if it was this?" And they said, "That's great. Can you just do a treatment?" So I wrote a treatment out. And so they bought the story idea from me. I didn't write the script. I didn't, they found 2 writers to do that. But so that was really my only professional dabbling in writing. And even that was kind of like us just sitting around spitballing and throwing ideas around. So
do you have, as primarily an effects supervisor, and yes, do you have any say ever in the story? Like, I know mostly it is obviously the scriptwriters and the directors, but do you ever put ideas out there?
Sure, yeah, you can always put ideas out there. And there have been a couple of times where I've been on set and it's like, "God, how do we do this?" It's like, "Hey, what if you did that?" Not that it was listened to or not, but again, you do feel like you're a part of, something organic as it's going along. And it all depends on your role. It's like most of what I do is just character design. So it's, if, like when Night Shyamalan had me on Lady in the Water and The
Shout out to
Village.
Shyamalan.
I'm sorry?
I was just saying, shout out to Shyamalan.
Oh, I know.
He
I
grew
know.
up
He's fucking awesome.
a street away from my mom, and
Oh,
we're
get
both
outta here.
Indian too, and filmmakers. So
That's hilarious.
kinda
Your
fun,
house
but-
is probably in some of his early movies.
probably.
That's awesome. No, he is just sweetheart of a guy, super creative. You know, he's all about the art. He's all about the story. He's all about, and he's just a good guy. And I just love working with him. And what was the question? What was I saying? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I'm afraid I lost track too.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
It was mostly just about
We start talking about
it being
night.
organic and about bringing out stories.
Oh yeah. So, with somebody like that, they have such a clear vision of what they're after, which is so great. And so you're not thinking in terms of how can we do this differently. You're just aiming for that goal of like make this the best that it can possibly be. I was on this one show called Creature, and it was kind of low budgety, and the director was kind of like, we got into a couple of pickles where we're just like going, what are we doing? You know? And at that point, it's kind of fun to throw your 2 cents in, even though you know it's not your place. But it's nice to know your place. Like that's probably the key, and when not to step outside of that. Like, even if you think you know the answer to that, sometimes it's better to kind of kick back and let the people who are supposed to be doing that do that. So I don't know if that answered that question at all.
No, totally. And on that topic, I'm sure sometimes you've had other people who maybe are not in the position to say so come up to you and say, like, maybe it should be this instead.
Yeah. Oh,
How
yeah.
do you deal with
totally.
that?
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
That's the right way.
And that's
the
it.
right way.
That's interesting.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's interesting.
I
And
gotta
you know
take
what?
that.
Sometimes it's the right thing. Somebody came to me when I was doing, God, what was I doing? And they go, oh, that looks kind of like a moon. God, I can't remember what it was. And I went, yeah, that's what it is. And so I made it a moon, and it worked. You know what I mean? So sometimes you're staring at something for so long that you can't see it anymore, and sometimes it takes somebody to just walk by, you know,
For
just
sure.
a comment. Yeah. So always keep your eyes and ears open. Never be like, who do you think you are? You know?
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to
Yeah.
know. So, after going back and forth between makeup and effects, then you did a lot of projects based mostly in visual effects, including Enchanted. And I was wondering about that, it being like half completely animated. What was that like?
Well, that was a weird time because the visual effects stuff was really with Stan and Night.
Yeah. Okay.
After Stan. And then it was pretty much primarily character design. So with Enchanted, I think there were some other designers on it too. That was kind of a strange period of my career where I was just piecemealing and getting work wherever I could get it, because I had been away from Stan's for a little bit and was just getting scared, like how much work is out there, and I have 2 more weeks on this project, and what am I going to do then? And then something would come in right at the end, like just, you know, by chance or whatever. And Enchanted was I just did a bunch of, I don't even know if the designs even showed up in the show. So I've done a lot of work like that, you know, and there will be other artists, and sometimes that artist just has a better flair. You know, that's what's cool about hiring several different artists, because you do get different takes and different ideas. When I work with Gore, we're so like in touch with each other and so in sync that we get so much done in that respect. But when you're on a project and you're kind of searching for ideas, it's so great to have different artists, especially if they're not sitting in the same room, like because then they go off into their own little worlds, and then they come back and, you know, with some ideas. So Enchanted was just kind of like I did some designs, I got some feedback, did some more designs, didn't hear back. Yeah, so there are a lot. My credit list is, you know, I could probably take out 40% of the work to kind of say I worked on it and I did my best on it, but, you know, and it's not about what makes it to the cut.
Yeah.
It's that you kind of presented ideas that maybe they weren't the right idea, which helps. That helps guide the vision. All right, let's don't go down that route. I'm not too proud to say that.
Yeah. Maybe. So after that, then there was Jurassic World. So since you had started out with Jurassic Park, especially being a paleontologist wannabe as a kid.
Yeah.
And then you had those 3 movies, and then they ended, and maybe it felt like it was all over. But having that, did it feel like it came full circle?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that, and the 3rd installment, the Spinosaur, I think it was the last thing I designed for it.
I loved it, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, man. Yeah, Joey Orozco sculpted that, and he did an amazing job. That was right at the end of my stay with Stan, too. So it was just this nice kind of bookend of, I kind of felt like, well, I was there for the first one, and I'm not sure where it's going to go from here. Not that it was feeling tired or old or anything like that. I just kind of felt like, wow, I'm so satisfied with the work that we've done on this and that I've done on it. And so happy and thankful for the work I did at Stan's, and for Stan taking that chance on me and teaching me what he taught me. And I was just kind of ready for a new adventure. And there were a couple of projects that came back around that had kind of a prehistoric kind of flair to it, which was always fun, or dragons,
Yeah.
Anything that's like that, I would do in a heartbeat. But yeah, that satisfaction of, I've done dinosaurs now. I guess.
For sure. So, in terms of VFX and character design, what does it look like in big budget, like action movies per se, like Jurassic World, as opposed to maybe smaller drama films?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
I was just saying, what does VFX and character design look like in bigger budget films as opposed to smaller, maybe dramas?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, they've got a lot more resources
Yeah.
at their disposal.
Definitely.
They can hire a lot more people. They can, I don't think it's so much. There have been amazing films made with great characters in them that were low budget, films. But the design was cool, and they were made by passionate people. Like, I love The Host. I don't know if you've seen The Host.
I have not
Great
yet.
design, digital work, cool creature, and it's just, it didn't have to be a big budget. It's what I love about technology now is that they're making small budget films look like big budget now. You know what I mean? And it's not about that they look fantastic and overblown. It's just that they're tastefully done now. Like, every film should be tastefully done. I think that there's a genre of film that right now that I just feel like, gosh, really, another digital, like, cartoon. I feel like I'm watching a cartoon. Yeah. And I miss just the realism. And that's why I tend to go to, like, the lower budget kind of like indie films. And I just love that real feel, They have digital stuff in it, but it's done so tastefully that it doesn't, scream at you that it's something you've never seen before, like,
Totally. So, we talked about good collaborators earlier. About bad collaborators, how do you persevere working with maybe on a project that you feel like that's the right place for you to be, but you're not working with the best collaborators? How do you work through that?
Well, for me, it's all about that. And if they're happy with what I'm doing, even though we're not really seeing eye to eye, then I'll keep going and just go, well, look, as long as the work is doing what it's supposed to do, that it's not about me. It's like, I don't need to be your friend. You don't need to be my friend. I just need to give you what you're looking for the work. Some collaborators, I had to say, you know what, I don't think I'm right for this show. And part of it was his personality, but a big part of it was just, I felt like I was giving you what you're asking for, but you're still kind of like shooting me down. And it's like, life's too short. I want to be happy with what I'm doing, and this isn't making me happy. So, and there are a lot of guys out there that could probably give you what you want. So I think it'd be better off if we didn't, continue. So that's only really happened once. And most of the time I've dealt with some really great people, and the majority of people I've dealt with have always been awesome. There was just one or two that just kind of like, it wasn't worth the time. It's just not, especially when you're doing what you're supposed to love and they're making you not love it anymore. That's when you got to stop, and pull out, because they're going to kill it for you. You know what I mean? So you got to protect that sometimes. And I've been fortunate. I haven't had to do that. I've only had to do that once, really. Twice.
For sure. That's good advice, though, for sure. So you've had a lot of really good projects out there, but what work are you the most proud of? Or is there any one you would maybe disassociate yourself with if you could?
Oh. Yeah, I've got one of each of those. I think Davy Jones is probably my, just because because of working with gore, it was such a great experience. And what came out of that experience was a cool original design that I felt like was, iconic, and you couldn't ask for anything better than that. I think Rango was probably the best experience I've had totally on a film, because we were just so in it in the moment. Jurassic was great, but I was scared the whole time. Like it's like, God, am I going to get yelled at by Steven Spielberg or something? Am I going to drop something and ruin a scene? It's like, and then what I wish I could bail out of, nah. I mean, even though The Mummy, with Tom Cruise wasn't that great, it didn't get a lot of, there's still
good things to take away from
it. Like, as long as you're doing what you love to do, and like, you're trying your hardest, it's like, my worst day designing is better than my best day
without it.
Give me say anything
without it,
except surfing. My worst day surfing is better than my best day doing anything else. But I mean, like, you always, and like I said, it's a super collaborative, and there are a lot of elements that come into play. And music can ruin a film. Like, in that you're not even close to even being a part of that in any way, shape, or form. And so all you can do is hope for the best, and when it works, you're thrilled. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So what should we expect from future projects?
Oh, well,
what can you tell us?
we're starting. I can't really tell you what projects. Well, we have Renfield coming out, which is going to be super cool. Nick Cage is Dracula and just kills it, like literally. I think it's his best role ever. Like, he's just so compelling and just so fun, and so we're really excited about Renfield coming out. We have a couple other projects. So everything I'm doing now is based around the Universal monsters, and it's been a little while, but we're starting to get some really interesting scripts coming in. Chloe Zhao has a really interesting take. I'm afraid of giving too much away, but so I think a new breed of Universal monster movies, in the vein of like what the latest Invisible Man did, like that. I thought that was like the perfect tone for, it's modern, it's a different take, it's
Looking Glass too. What's to come?
So I think that's what I'm shooting for anyway.
Very cool. Well, looking forward to all of that.
Awesome. Fantastic.
For sure. So we're approaching the end of our podcast. This has been amazing. I've personally learned a lot.
Awesome.
But we ask every guest this question before ending the interview.
Uh-oh.
If you could go back in time and give your teenage self a piece of advice, what would you tell them? It's a hard one.
Wow, that is.
Take your time.
I would say, but I kind of did that. Like, I think trust yourself a little bit more. I'm very, very, very insecure. And maybe that insecurity keeps me humble. Maybe that insecurity keeps me striving to do 130% when I get a job. But there is something about, what was I so worried about? don't worry, be happy. I think that's the best advice I can give, because man, you can worry yourself into a corner until you're petrified. You know, you paralyze yourself from just, is this going to happen? It's like, well, it's not going to happen if you just sit there and worry about it. So I think just trusting myself, I would tell myself to trust myself more. And I think I would have gotten a lot more done. You know, I would have probably created more or looked for less of an excuse to avoid, you know, work. Yeah.
Cool.
That's all I got.
No, that's amazing. This has been amazing. I've learned so much. I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Oh, I hope so.
We'll let you get back to your wonderful work. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. It's so good to be
Have
here.
a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Awesome. Thank you.
See you next time on the LACHSA Masterclass podcast.